Hello and God bless you guys. I hope everybody's doing well. I believe the Holy Spirit led me to a project to finish off the Wicked Angel Harvest. And I came across, I kept hearing timeline and look at the timeline. Now, a timeline is a great tool because in law enforcement or investigations, it puts together things that it builds a case. That way you're led to have an understanding of the sequence of events and how they occurred and how they could have occurred based upon what happened when. I'll give you an example. I grew up in Colorado in Grand Junction, and there was a murder on our street. Uh, Actually, my neighbor killed his wife, and then next door neighbor and some children. A horrific time. But one thing that the police used to convict him and discredit his alibi was timelines. Timelines are just, I can't stress it enough. You know, if you have a receipt of getting gas somewhere, then and you're on camera at that point in time in that gas station, then you couldn't be committing a crime somewhere else. Generally speaking. So anyway, I was led to look at a timeline. Well, the Lord led me to this guy. Let me just get his name here real quick. And he had put together a awesome timeline. Now, this is the folder for it, and it starts at 1900s all the way till now. And he talks about big pharma, talks about different things, and he puts together a great timeline with quotes, with people present, of what has occurred with these fallen entities. Now, I know them as fallen angels, demons. I might slip up and say aliens. That's not to discredit what we have going on here. So if you hear me say that term or whatever, I have an understanding of what they are. So they're not aliens from outer space. There is a demonic presence that they have taken. They've done this to full. The demonic presence that they are have taken on alien type persona to fool us into exactly what's going on. So this guy, I'm gonna pull up his document here, just the beginning of it, is Dan Willis. I don't know much about this guy. It says he did this National Press Club. He was a witness that testified here. He was in the military, and he has firsthand experiences. He's been on the Art Bell show or whatever it is now, Coast to Coast AM. I don't even know if this guy's still alive. I couldn't find a bio on him really. He was a newsman for ABC, and he just, all this stuff will be available to you on the link down below. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of going through, but I was astounded by just what I was reading because it all makes sense. It all clicked on why things happened the way they did. I kind of went through and did just a basic outline of a timeline, which we'll go through. But those detailed ones, we're gonna highlight a few things in those detailed ones that show that this series, The Wicked Angel Harvest, is, I think, pretty much on point. I might have a few things wrong, but I think it's pretty much on point. So let's begin. Now he starts off in the 1900s. I started off here with Hollywood and the influence it has. And this was a radio broadcast in 1938. It was actually Halloween, and it was a show on the radio by Orson Welles. And he starts off with an invasion of aliens. And it put everyone into a panic. I think several people actually committed suicide. There were people running and screaming. They didn't know what to do. It was a great cataclysmic moment until they released a retract, that this was just a radio show. So this was the beginning of the entertainment industry, with the enemy's way of disclosing his plans, instilling fear, and that was the defining moment of it coming into our lives. Now, what I did is I went through Wiki and UFO encounters. There's a document that's actually included that kind of goes over, the different terms that are used. For example, Operation Paperclip, Federal Reserve, all these different things. So there's documents that support exactly what we're talking about here, that we're talking about in kind of a quick flash. So here's another 1941 UFO crash, craft and bodies. This was in Kentucky, I believe, or Cape Verdeau. I have to look it up. I have to see exactly, but same thing. They came in, they secured the craft. The government moved, took bodies, recovered wreckage, all that different things. 1941 Foo Fighters. These were the blazing orbs of light. We talked about these in the videos in the past. These are, demonic presence, demonic containers. The Nazi advanced technologies believe that Nazi scientists were working with alien powers. There's a lot of backing with this to destroy humanity. Obviously, the less desirables first, which is what we're seeing now with the vaccines and everything. Starting with the elderly people. It's the same thing that's happening. This is also an up and coming mirror of the up and coming beast system, which will be the One World Order, led by the Fallen, with the beast as the front man. In this case, it was Hitler. All things repeat themselves, folks. Nazi experiments, horrible medical procedures, the concentration camps, FEMA, all a reflection of what is to come. 1942, the Battle for Los Angeles. Just to put this in perspective, they had these bright lights over Los Angeles. I remember my grandmother telling me about this. Everyone in LA had to shut off their lights. They couldn't go out. It was an attack, they thought, from Japan. And of course, it looked supernatural. So there was rumors of things from outer space. Later, it was documented in 1949 that this was a weather balloon that generated war nerves. All right, so here come the lies already in 1942. These bright lights appeared off the West Coast. They were shooting at them and everything else, and LA was put on lockdown for the duration of that time period. World War II ends. So when the World War II ended, we were at the top of the heap as far as the dominating world power. We recruited several Nazi scientists, medical doctors, in exchange for their freedom. They were all charged with leading us in the technological advances that they had made in World War II. Many of these, in my opinion, are tied to the European elite, Illuminati, and other secret societies. These secrets they provided the jump start to the technological aid to aid us in the next war and the threat of our nation, Operation Paperclip. Well, let's take a look at Operation Paperclip. And it's right here. Secret program, Joint Intelligence Agency. All right, so already we have these agencies forming, okay? Carried out, and of course, they were much earlier than this, all right? But here's an official recognition that we see. 1,600 German scientists, engineers, technicians were taken from Germany to the United States for U.S. government employment, primarily between 45 and 59, former leaders of the Nazi Party. Okay. And this goes on from here. You can click on the links in the document and check that out for yourself. This was the beginning right here of the military-industrial complex, in my opinion, if not beforehand. But this is a good road marker in the timeline that shows us that we're not all we're cracked up to be, and our government's not all it's cracked up to be. To do this and to recruit them for our own benefit and give them amnesty here, to me was absolutely asinine. So General President MacArthur in 1945, he tells the New York Times the next war will be interplanetary and the world will have to unite to have a chance against an alien enemy attack on our world. Okay, it's kind of funny. He actually fires MacArthur in 1945, but he goes on. MacArthur tells the New York Times after he's fired this story. MacArthur supposedly met with aliens in somewhere over in his area of operation. That's also in the timeline as well. So 1947 was the Admiral Byrd incident. We talked about that extensively in the previous video, so I'm not going to go too much into it here. But he was a war hero. He's the perfect man, all right, for Satan to set up a interaction with to show that there's a good alien race, if you will, okay, demon race. And he meets with him in Antarctica on a beautiful place, and he's called the Master. Who does that sound like? Okay. He divulges that they're there to assist the world to rebuild when we destroy it, out of chaos order. Correct, right? And that he also deals that there are deals being made with another race of beings that we should not have trusted. So right away we have the good cop versus the bad cop. All right, the good cop versus these guys, and they're going to come in and save the day. All right, the Palladians, the ones that look like us, the blonde hair, the tall, they're fallen angels. All right, and they're going to come in and assist us with what these guys end up doing to us. Okay, so he's already says that there, and he says some truth in this, and I talk about it in the previous video. Also states the deals are being made with another race, so there's already things going on pre-1947. Okay, so there's always stuff going on. I think this is a great God move here. So in 1947 in June, we have the Dead Sea Scrolls that are located. Ancient documents that describe the mischievous and awful deeds of the fallen angels. It does. It tells us everything we need to know. And I'll tell you exactly what that is here in a minute. These secrets involve simple trade. Cooperate with us, or we will divulge secrets to you. It's spiritual fornication. You tell us things, you give us your cooperation, and we're going to share advanced technology with you. And as they give them this advanced technology, I'm sure at some point they say, we can extend your life through technology, which will be the mark of the beast. Okay, it won't be a permanent thing, as far as, they won't be immortal. However, they will be chained to darkness for the rest of their soul will be chained to darkness at that point. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. However, that's the thing. It's sexual fornication, but in the spirit. You give us secrets, and we'll help you. The problem is that these secrets take us further away from the Lord. What does technology do? Yeah, it has some good purposes. I'm using it right now for a good purpose. However, we've become a slave to it in a lot of ways. People that don't have faith in God are putting everything into technology and, of course, science, quote unquote, right? To corrupt mankind and to a point of complete rebellion against the Lord and to the destruction of our own people. This is exactly where we're at. They became drunk on knowledge and technology, giving the fallen any cooperation that they desired. All right. Of course, we have the famous Roswell crash. Notice the dates. 47, June and July. So we have a move, and then we have a move, right? All these moves are being made at this point. The famous Roswell crash. Bodies recovered from a crash site. Gained press conference states no bodies, no craft. The whole ordeal was a weather balloon misidentification. This meeting, in my opinion, is what spawned an agreement of some sort. As from this date forward, right, technology for both defense and society explodes. All right, think about what all the inventions that occurred around this time frame. Night vision. You have TVs, computers, credit cards, birth control, fiber optics, Kevlar. All this stuff is coming out around this time frame. So we have our technology, and then we got to give them something, which is coming up here in a minute. We'll talk about it. So now we have the formation of the Majestic 12. A lot of stuff surrounding this that's, you got to kind of weave through it. So a group of 12 men, experts in their fields, both protecting the sensitive UFO information, and I believe also pushing out much disinformation to the curious public, which is probably what spawned this. When the Roswell crash happened, they had to have the Majestic 12 formed in order to push out disinformation to the public, as well as gain real information from the fallen. Exactly. So what I said here is I believe that this group ties directly to the Roswell incident. At first, the higher military echelon claimed they did, in fact, crash a UFO with bodies. They came out and said that. Now, you've all seen the newspapers, like, yes, there are bodies, there was a UFO. Then they retracted their statement, making themselves look foolish, stating that it was a weather balloon. All right, so this Majestic 12 gets real interesting. Okay, so just keep, if you want to do a little digging into that, it's pretty interesting. Now we have this happen, okay? So Israel becomes a nation. And when Israel becomes a nation, a lot of things occur. Of course, obviously, a nation is being born. But this spawns a biblical explosion. Because now you have people who have been, brought up in church their whole life. And you have all these people who, these Christians, they see prophecy unfolding. Okay, so Israel is becoming a nation. So now we're starting to build churches. We can see prophecy unfolding. People are excited. When's the Messiah coming? All these different things are occurring. So you have this explosion of Christianity awakening, and also this technological age going at the same exact time. And of course, if you look at pictures of the late 40s and 50s, everyone has a beautiful home, beautiful yard. I mean, God was blessing our nation because of, the good things that we were doing at this point. But now we're starting to have, some stirring in the government bodies. And what this is going to do to the people eventually is drive them away from God. So this was a perfect time frame for this to occur. Hindsight 2020, this is when the tent revivals, all those things were happening. And on the other hand, you have color TV, you have credit cards, night vision, Kevlar, fiber optics, birth control computers, advanced weapons, all those different things occurring. All right. So the prophecy just unfolded. All right. Churches sprouted, missionaries sprouted, charismatic movement, tent revivals, all those things sprung up. So 1948, again, we had a second Roswell, which occurred in New Mexico. A dogfight. So all these things are starting to really come forth. All these UFO sightings. Commercial pilots. Military pilots. Clear as day. So now people, when these things come out, now people are questioning. On one hand, you have Israel becoming a nation. On the other hand, you're having alien craft being seen. Where are aliens in the Bible? So what's going on here is kind of a split pathway, if you will. This is kind of interesting. This was in September 1951, 1 year prior to 1952 over D.C. So jump ahead, 1952 over D.C., you have probably the most publicized sightings that ever took place. Consecutive weekends, and here's the dates. They were on the radar. They were seen by many people. They were all over D.C., the capital, just everywhere. Exactly, almost 1 year prior to that, you have The Day the Earth Stood Still was released from Hollywood. Flying saucer lands in Washington. The army surrounds it. We all know the story. I come in peace and do goodwill. This robot emerges, and we've all seen the movie, or we should have. Then you had the Lubbock Lights, were 3 professors. So now you got people of distinguished, backgrounds. Educated people seeing UFOs, and there's many more between all these guys. I'm just kind of highlighting here. And then, of course, we just talked about 1952. I believe this was a show of force, of superiority to the government. Kind of, we're here and we are in charge. We are thousands of light years in front of you, technology. But this was very, very well publicized. And let me pull up the wiki on this one real quick. Here it is right here. 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident. A series of unidentified flying objects reported from this date to that date. The climax of the 1952 UFO flap. And then it goes into the, kind of the details. 7 objects on radar, 15 miles. So, anyway. Show of force. Sightings, 52. September 12th, day after 9/11, previously, the Flatwoods Monster UFO, seen on a hill by 3 boys. So, 1953, Eisenhower's put into office. Eisenhower is probably one of the most loved presidents in our history. Just a man's man, a general. Without him, could not have won World War II. So just a premier person, kind of like Admiral Byrd. So then we have Nelson Rockefeller, third son of John Rockefeller, was tasked by Eisenhower with reconstructing the U.S. government. Among the things Rockefeller reconstructed or restructured was how to organize the NSA apparatus to accommodate the activities and the goals of Majestic 12. And working with the CIA's black operations, Rockefeller found suitable vehicle through the Majestic 12 group that he conduct its business in complete secrecy. So now MJ12 is starting to split from the government in this oversight. Okay? You have this guy, who we know is no good, is obviously probably one of the premier in the Illuminati or the secret societies. Okay? And they got this Majestic 12, and they're they're gradually pulling away from oversight. In 54, February 20th, President Eisenhower goes to Palm Springs for a vacation. The press gets spun up that they see that the president is not hitting the golf course, as expected. Rumors begin of his health, and a press conference is held. The press secretary, James Haggerty, explains that the press conference that the president has lost a filling while eating. The president, not in need of dental work, had a meeting with aliens on Edwards Air Force Base. The gray alien race representatives said that they are a dying race from the reticulum star system and are seeking to negotiate in exchange for their superior technology for human and animal genetic material, missing persons, abductions, cattle mutilations to follow. And they are needing this to revive their own faltering species. This is where it begins, right here, in a meeting that sounds so absurd that easily dismissed. Now, there were obviously other people at this meeting, and they did come forward and speak. However, it is hard to find information on it. I did find some in this timeline, in the detailed timeline. He talks detailed about it. I didn't put it in here because it would just be too exhausting, but it is in the other timeline, and we will go there and take a look. So there is a little bit of confusion, okay? And you got to kind of accept that, I guess. But what happens, according to our author here, that the first contact was at Edwards Air Force Base, California. Participants that attended were part of the study to research what reaction the public may have, and that Eisenhower had planned to make an announcement soon after the first contact event. So he was going to make a public announcement in May following that year to tell the people that aliens do exist. Now, in the meeting, it talks about he met with an advanced Nordic type race. That's our master group, right? The same ones that Admiral Byrd met with. Now, they are warned against the Greys, reptilians, and let's see here, that we're on a path of self-destruction. Stop killing each other, stop polluting the earth, stop raping the resources, and learn to live in harmony. What does this sound like to you? Okay? Not that these things are bad things, but it's inevitable that these things are happening because of the spiritual warfare that's happening and the way the Bible unfolds. The self-destruction of our planet, this all sounds very New Age, right? Live in harmony. They asked us to dismantle our nuclear weapons. This was refused. They offered no advanced technology in exchange. So it's just the same conversation that Admiral Byrd had a while back. Okay. So these were present at the meeting. Cardinal Francis McIntyre. And he goes back and talks to the Pope, even though he was sworn to secrecy. Gerald Light, he writes a letter to a friend, Meade Lane. And in this letter, he's like, it's true. The report is true. Devastatingly true. Okay. So you can read all that, but I'm just kind of trying to highlight here. And here's our gray alien race that said, so the meetings had to have been close. I'm not sure exactly how this all unfolded, okay? But anyway, it makes sense biblically when you understand the exchange for technology, right? Then we have the Great Treaty. This was at the time they were... there was another meeting, okay, a year later, and that's where Eisenhower went out alone. So, again, it's kind of hard on putting this together. But there are quotes, there are people, there are names that you can put to it. We have records from 1954 that were meetings of being our own leaders of this country and ETs here in California. And I understand it from the written documentation. We were asked if we would allow them to be here and do research. I have read only that our reply was, well, how can we stop you? You are advanced. And I will say by this camera and by the sound that was President Eisenhower that had this meeting. All right, so there are quotes from the meeting. There are quotes from people that that were there. Okay. But this is the big point. This is the takeaway. These things have occurred, and now we can kind of look back in retrospect and say, now this is why this stuff had to happen. Okay. Realizing his obvious disadvantage, President Eisenhower reluctantly negotiated a covert treaty with these creatures without advice or consent from Congress or any public at large. For the technological exchange, the deal provided a top-secret operations facility at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, otherwise known as Area 51, as well as another undisclosed area in the southwest, presumably Dulce, New Mexico. In trade, these aliens were granted covert random access to the American population for genetic sampling. Individuals selected would not be harmed or retain their conscious memory of harvesting procedures, and a full list of human harvest contributors would be provided to government authorities. So, Eisenhower's kind of put between a rock and a hard place. The problem is these people didn't seek the Lord. That's the first issue is, now granted, we had the Dead Sea Scrolls discovered and everything else, but, there was no, hey, let's stop for a second and think about this. What the heck are we really dealing with? And, knowledge is power. Knowing the Bible and knowing exactly what these things are, had he known, he could have put a stop to them. And, there's many cases by, I can't think of this guy's name. He used to work for MUFON, but he's like, I have over 500 documented cases of alien abduction where people have invoked the name of Jesus and they had to leave. immediately. So, invoke the name of Jesus. This could have been totally avoidable. But anyway, let's keep going. So in 1954, the Bilderbergers' first meetings, led by Prince Bernard, former SS officer, attending were President Eisenhower, CIA director, all these people, David Rockefeller, George Soros, Donald Rumsfeld, Richard Murdoch, all these names, Oppenheimer, Clinton, Spielberg, all at this Bilderberger group. And they are the real people in charge against, what we see as far as this person here. Eisenhower, to his ultimate regret, would agree with this duplicitous argument, put him on one of Rockefeller's recommendations for government reorganization out of the loop, unlike the previous Truman administration in which MJ-12 and CIA were directly responsible and under control of the president. So now he's put in this hard place of what to do. And Eisenhower's second meeting, 1955, with alien beings he meets in private and alone at Holloman Air Force Base, institutes a new permanent MJ-12. Alien-backed projects were very expensive, and the contact had not been disclosed to Congress, the contract. So all this is behind the scenes with MJ-12 and the president. And the president's barely in on it. He's the front man. That's it. So the aliens put him in a corner, but these guys are actually the ones working with them, if that makes sense. So they had to come up with alternative means to acquire vast amounts of money that would be off the books, because no one else knows. Congress doesn't know. The House doesn't know. Nobody. No committee except for this one and the CIA. Whoever's in the CIA at this point. Now, this meeting here, it goes in detail. Like they landed Air Force One at an airfield. The craft was sitting there on the airfield, and he went out to the craft. So I know this is kind of vague, but it's all detailed in the other ones. So MJ-12 in concert with the CIA. This is where it gets good, right here. MJ-12 in concert with the CIA devised a black operation of illegal drug pipelines into America. One perfected technique was the use of offshore Texas oil rigs, which were a major part of this contribution. Led and owned by George H.W. Bush, later head of the CIA. So they got to pay for all this. DuPont costs money. Technology costs money. Missiles cost money. All this stuff costs money. All these projects cost money. It's got to be off the books. We can't go to Congress for the money because they don't know about it. So here's our solution right here. And this is why we continue to have an opium problem here in America. All right? This stuff is still going on. Due to the rise of power of these aliens-backed entities of the executive branch and Congress were no longer providing oversight to CIA and MJ-12 and the military-industrial complex. A government within a government had been formed. This was hinted at in Eisenhower's farewell speech of 1961. The military-industrial complex, NASA, and DARPA are born, 1958. I might have this wrong. I'm sorry if it is. I remember I had something wrong and I forgot to fix it. On NASA, NASA, Dr. Kurt Heinrich Debius was the German V-2 rocket scientist in World War II, who, after being brought to the United States after Operation Paperclip, became the first director of NASA. Well, isn't that special? Debius was a member of the Nazi Party, a member of the SS. So this guy was an Operation Paperclip person brought in, and he got to head that. Eisenhower is now in over his head. He cannot disclose to the public the alien encounter. He cannot go to Congress. The CIA, the MI6, Operation Paperclip, MJ-12 have become too powerful. So this was interesting. He was going to go after him with our own military. Eisenhower was. We called the people in from MJ-12 and Area 51 and S4, but they told us that the government had no jurisdiction over what they were doing. I want you and your boss to fly out there. I want you to give them a personal message. I want you to tell them, whoever's in charge, I want to tell them that they have this coming week to get into Washington and to report to me. If they don't, I'm going to send the 1st Army from Colorado. We're going to take the base over. I don't care what kind of classified material you got. We're going to rip this thing apart. Eisenhower farewell. Eisenhower was unable to change the situation. After 1960 presidential election, Eisenhower felt impelled to share his concerns in a daily way with his farewell speech to the nation. It would be what he shared privately. However, with President-elect Kennedy, that would have been the most dramatic effect on American history. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. He is smashing these guys. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert, knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery for defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together. This major turning point where our legal constitution government lost control is now in the hands of these rogue, compartmented operations outside the legal, constitutional chain of command, oversight, and control. So, with Kennedy coming in, this is where it gets, Eisenhower and Kennedy had private discussions with their respective staffs. Kennedy would learn directly from the former 5-star general and 2-term president that the military-industrial complex had taken control over an issue so highly classified and relatively few people in the vast U.S. federal bureaucracy and had the necessary security clearance to know about. The issue concerned the UFO phenomenon and the alleged advanced technologies that had been recovered from UFO crashes. These technologies were being secretly reversed engineered in secure military corporate facilities. Kennedy was already aware of the reality of the covert extraterrestrial operations from his background in naval intelligence and his close association with MJ-12 member James Forrestal when he reviewed in Germany the Nazi technologies in 1945, where he met General Eisenhower originally. Eisenhower got Kennedy up to speed on the nature of the problem involving Majestic 12 and the S4 facility. Eisenhower would reveal the details of the threat posed by the military-industrial complex to Kennedy, that Eisenhower would generally describe his farewell speech warning. 61. President Kennedy issued Executive Order 10920 that abolished the Operations Coordinating Board. This was the primary intricacy organization responsible for the Cold War psychological war activities. This is done to gain power over all covert activities related to psychological warfare in the CIA, which the CIA controlled. So, as you can tell, what's happening here is this is going to come to bite him in the butt, right? He already knows. He's already talked with him. He's failed, okay? He thinks he can fix it, but it ain't going to happen. CIA Director Alan Dulles is fired by Kennedy. Now, these dates, I think, again, I might have wrong. But this is a quote from Kennedy. "I will splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the wind." I think he was fired after the Bay of Pigs. But what's funny is this guy... Oh, we'll get to that. Kennedy and Eisenhower again meet at Camp David. Kennedy gives his famous speech in 1961 on conspiracies and secret societies as a free and open society. He gave that to the American newspaper publishers. From this point forward until his assassination, there was a power struggle. CIA, MJ-12 meet secretly on how to deal with President Kennedy. There were burned memos, documents that allude to formatting plans to killing Kennedy. Betty and Barney Hill abduction. This disclosed where they lived. It disclosed a lot of things about the fallen angels, demons. DIA is created in 1961. CIA Director Alan Dulles denies MJ-12 access to Kennedy about their activities. Most significantly, Dulles' letter said, "For reasons of security, I cannot divulge pertinent data on some or more of the sensitive aspects of MJ-12 activities." So he's going behind Kennedy with MJ-12 completely. So now you have Marilyn Monroe enter. I kind of think she was brought in by the CIA to make Kennedy look bad, to entice him to an affair, which we all know probably that he did have one. But I think it was, to wreck his marriage, to destroy him as a president, I think was their first kind of like, all out attack. If we can do this and get her on board, then, we can destroy his life and he'll have to, resign. This goes on to Marilyn Monroe a little bit. Her friend was killed as well, Dorothy Killigan. So Kennedy signs an executive order to abolish the Federal Reserve System. He's trying to pull people out of Vietnam. Now, Vietnam was the drug. It was all about drugs. Again, money, military-industrial complex. Kennedy issued a top-secret memorandum to the director of the CIA, John McCone, dated the same day of November 12, 1963. The subject header of the file was classification review of all UFO intelligence files affecting national security. Ultimatum to MJ-12, dismantle the illegal drug trade. So he issued this ultimatum to them, basically to dismantle, reveal the practice and the extraterrestrial presence, end the dependence on the Federal Reserve, and stop the Vietnam War. And then President Kennedy was then murdered in Texas. So this is, like I said, a general timeline. This guy breaks it down. Well, let's just look at 63, for example. He talks about all the different things. Like LBJ actually appoints the guy who was at Dulles that he fired, that Kennedy fires to be the head of the investigation. Yeah, here it is. The Warren Commission conspiracy, headed by none other than Alan Dulles. LBJ appointed Dulles to the position of to decide whether or not the Kennedy's assassination was a conspiracy or not. Yeah, the guy he fired. Yeah, that's a great idea. And this goes on. Again, much more detail, links, several different links, and just a great timeline. It really is. And it really paints the picture of what happened, and the whole motives behind everything, on why they occurred. So anyway, that's all. I will leave a link in the description box where you can access all these documents, all the supporting documents that I could muster as well for this timeline. Again, this was just generic. The other ones are really in depth, and if you just put the Bible perspective into this, the simple pieces of technology for your cooperation, that's exactly what it is. But anyway, God bless you guys. Take care.